You can build a Chrome extension with any modern web framework, like React, Angular, or Svelte. That's true even in Manifest v3. But there are good and bad choices and some interesting considerations, so let's talk about that. Welcome back to Developer Mode. This is the series where we answer your questions with a focus on Chrome extensions and the web extensions platform more broadly. Really quickly, before we jump in, consider subscribing to the Chrome for Developers channel if you haven't already. We don't usually ask for that here, but it's a good way to see new videos in this series, new videos about other things happening in Chrome, and also to see YouTube shorts for some of the shorter or more fun content that we make. Getting back to frameworks, the easy answer is yes. You can absolutely use frameworks to build a Chrome extension. Let me actually give you a really quick example. So I have a basic extension here. It has a background.js file that opens index.html, and then index.html has a script tag, which is loading this index.jsx file. And this is a really simple React app, which is just rendering hello world to the page. And then I have esbuild, since I'm using JSX for templating, and that needs a compile step. And then I can go ahead and I can run this. I can load this in the browser, and you can see that the page opens and we see the hello world. So this works great. Now, there are lots of different contexts where an extension might want to show UI, and there are some different considerations for the framework that you might pick in each case, so let's talk through each of those. I have the Google Dictionary extension installed in my browser, so we can use that as quite a nice example. This is actually one that I helped to migrate to Manifest v3, and I know how it works quite well. If I click the action icon, we can see the pop-up. And if I inspect the pop-up, you can see that this is just HTML and JavaScript. It's fully isolated, so whatever you run isn't going to bloat the page, and you might want a pretty complex application here, so using a framework which is very capable makes a lot of sense. Now, you still want to be mindful of performance, but I would say you don't need to worry as much here. My experience is that React can take longer to bootstrap than other options, for example, but I think it would be a reasonable choice here. If I go to a page and highlight a word, you can see this pop-up. This pop-up we want to show really quickly, and we might be showing multiple of these pop-ups over time, so a heavy framework probably isn't the right choice. Something like Svelte would be great here, or even just vanilla JavaScript. In the case of the Google Dictionary extension, we're using the Mustache templating engine, so actually not a framework at all, but it makes it a little easier to structure our code and ultimately just gives us HTML that we can add to the page. By the way, injecting content into the page means that the page has access to it. If that's a concern, consider iframes at the very least, or honestly just try to avoid it entirely. That's a whole rabbit hole in itself. It could be a whole video, but if you're interested in hearing more about that, feel free to let me know in the comments. Let's also go to the extension and open up the options page. And this is again a fully isolated page, so I can add script tags and use whatever framework I prefer. I'd say this is more similar to the pop-up case where whatever works for you is probably okay. Now, there are some frameworks that you probably shouldn't pick. Not because there's anything wrong with them, but just because they don't make as much sense for extensions. For example, any framework that's focused heavily on server-side rendering or complex HTTP routing probably isn't a good fit since extensions are entirely client-side. If you look at a lot of websites that include frameworks by adding a script tag that loads the framework from a CDN or content distribution network, that makes things easy for us as developers, but it doesn't work in extensions because we have a strict content security policy that prevents loading scripts from external resources. So I have the Web Extensions Playground here, and it's loading a script from the TypeScript website. This works great here, but if I was building this as an extension, that wouldn't work, and I'd need to make sure I bundled that script. A bundler like esbuild, rollup, or webpack can help with this. The reason we require it is to avoid the security risks with loading external content. Patrick Kettner from our team has a great video on that, which you can watch if you want to learn more. Hopefully that answers the question. You can absolutely use frameworks to build a Chrome extension. If you have further questions about this, feel free to leave them below. I could also talk a lot more about specific frameworks if that would be interesting. Just let us know. Until next time.